Hello, good morning. I am Dr. Winston John Romero Casio. I serve as a senior technical advisor for the Presidential Anti-Organized Crime Commission under the Office of the President. For the Presidential Anti-Organized Crime Commission, otherwise known as PAO, I am mandated to conduct the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crimes mandate on the serious and organized crime threat assessment. Basically, what I do together with the rest of my team is we extract data from law enforcement agencies, from non-governmental organizations, as well as from the academy, data pertaining to the various types of serious and organized crime that is being perpetrated here in the country and worldwide that has an effect on the Philippines. Let us provide some definitions first. What do we mean by serious crime? Basically, serious crime is any form of crime that would merit a temporary deprivation of liberty of 3 years and up. Meaning to say, uh, the punishment that would be meted out to anyone who would be violating any of the laws pertaining to serious crime would be 3 years. They would 3 years of incarceration. Now, what do we mean by organized crime? Now, organized crime is a type of criminal activity perpetrated by an organized group, as the word itself would say it. Now, there are certain parameters, qualifiers, definitions, so to speak, that would qualify what we mean by organized criminal activity. One, the first qualifier would be this is conducted by two or more individuals belonging to a hierarchical group. So there are two there actually. It is perpetrated, a criminal activity perpetrated by two or more individuals. That's the first qualifier. Second qualifier is that these individuals belong to a hierarchical type of group, meaning to say there is a relationship of power, there is power dynamics, there's a relationship between the superior and the subordinate, meaning to say someone provides, gives the order. Now, the third qualifier is this group of individuals conduct the said criminal activity for the purpose of profit. This is profit motivated. There is no ideology involved, there is no emotion involved, it's all for the sake of profit. Fourth qualifier is that the effect of this type of criminal activity redounds to a long-term effect relative to space and time. Meaning to say, the effect of this organized criminal activity is wide-ranging relative to the location it affects, the places it affects, as well as the time boundedness, the amount of time it would take to be able to put an end to this type of criminal activity for one. So, meaning to say, an organized criminal activity is not something that you think out of nowhere. It's not something that you just conjure out of your head. It's not something that you conjure simply because you thought about it one day. You woke up one day and you thought of committing an organized criminal type of activity. It's nothing like that. So what we mean by organized criminal activity is this is a very well planned, well orchestrated type of criminal activity that extends over long distances and over time. Now, why did I begin this particular discussion on that particular note? Well, primarily because we're talking about emerging political, ethical, and I would say legal issues in light of the new normal. The new normal is basically the digital age. The digital age has been with us for quite some time, even before the advent of COVID-19. Um, I could not possibly imagine of anyone within my immediate environment who is not connected to the web. Meaning to say, a great number of Filipino professionals are connected to the World Wide Web. And being connected to the World Wide Web provides us with certain advantages. It provides us with certain powers, so to speak. Then again, the same power, the same advantages likewise exposes us to certain threats, to certain disadvantages. And it is these disadvantages, it is these threats that we need to address to be able to protect ourselves so that we would not become victims of this particular types of criminal activity in the future. Now, in light of COVID-19, we've been talking about the new normal. We've been talking about digitization. We've been talking about the use of digital technology to be able to try to replicate how we used to live prior to the advent of COVID-19. So we've got learning, teaching modalities that are being provided through digital platforms as opposed to face-to-face learning, as opposed to face-to-face discussion, which is now a big no-no in light of the fact that COVID-19 is a highly transmittable disease that are transmitted from person to person. Now, likewise, with the advent of COVID-19, we don't only we are not only digitizing our um, we're not only digitizing our modes of teaching, our modes of learning, but likewise just about any other type of commercial activity. Now, you don't need to go to the physical store of Jollibee, McDonald's, or 7-Eleven even. You only need to go through your digital app, through your mobile phone, through your laptops, and order whatever you want to order online. That's an option that is now available to just about anybody with connection to the web. Then again, I tell you, we keep on stating that the amount of time we expose ourselves through the digital media exposes again to disadvantages and certain threats that we need to be properly be prepared of. Otherwise, we open ourselves as victims. We offer ourselves as victims to any type of cyber criminal out there, lurking on the dark web, lurking even on the open web, to be able to victimize us. Hence, I began my discussion as such, primarily because organized criminals are now on the digital platforms, are now on the web. A few days ago, we've read on the news through the Department of Justice Office of the Cybercrime. The Office of the Cybercrime is a particular office within our own Department of Justice mandated to protect, to coordinate the government's fight against cybercrime. Now, I'll provide a definition of what cybercrime is as we go along. Now, the OOC, the Office of the Cybercrime, stated that the most common type of cybercrime now in the advent of COVID-19 is what is known as phishing. Now, what is phishing? Phishing is basically when someone receives unsolicited emails, unsolicited texts from individuals that we do not know, supposedly offering us a number of too good to be true offers. Like someone will tell you through an email that he or she is the son of a former dictator of a country in Africa, and the late dictator has left hundreds of millions of dollars in a bank somewhere in London. And to be able to get those money from that London bank, this particular child of the former dictator, of the late dictator, would need our help through through a contribution of say $1,000 or 1,000 pesos or 10,000 pesos for him or her to be able to get access to that particular account in the London bank. So they would solicit money through us through the email or through texts or through whatever messages that you would receive on Facebook. Be very careful. Now, I've been going through the different Facebook pages, the Facebook groups on wherein professional teachers and any other Filipino professionals are members of. As I look at them, nakikita ko napakarami yung nag-o-offer na mga bitcoins, mga online selling, online business, na merong mga links. Be very careful. Please do not click on those links because those links are basically uh, uh, phishing type of activities wherein there is a malware waiting. Once you click on the link, a malware will capture all your login credentials. Once they get access to your login credentials, whatever particular commercial activity you do on your cell phone or you do on your laptop, where that particular criminal was able to get your login credentials. By golly, I tell you, they would be able to gain access to your banking activities. So very careful. No, be very very careful. Now, in some instances, some of these cyber criminals send you phishing email that mimic, that seem to replicate an actual valid email, say from your bank. All of a sudden, you would receive supposedly an email from your bank asking you to provide your login credentials, basically your login identification name, your login password, and in some instances they would even ask for your one-time password. Remember, your banks would not ask you to do that unless they do it through their mobile application. They will not ask you to do that in an email. They will not even ask you to do that through a text. When someone asks you for your login credentials through an email, I tell you, through a smart message, through a Facebook message, I tell you that is a phishing type of scam. Do not fall victim under such trap. So our discussions will be looking at legal, criminal, political, and even ethical issues in light of the new normal, in light of this digital age. This particular series of discussions for this particular module is designed to protect all Filipino professionals, teachers, criminologists, nurses, doctors, anybody who does online transaction, anybody who has an online account on social media or the same. So let us proceed. Now, let us set the tone first. So, certain nationalities have been known to conduct cybercrime. Now, I don't want to sound racist, I don't want to sound xenophobic, but I'd like to provide a clear picture as to which nationalities conduct which type of cybercrime. So that you'd be wary when you start receiving emails from these nationalities whom you do not know personally. Okay, the Russians. The Russians, together with the Chinese, are among the pioneers in the game. They are among the most efficient and they deliver the fastest results in terms of intellectual property theft. They're among the best hackers out there. In fact, the Russian Federation, headed by its president, Vladimir Putin, has been allegedly has been promoting, has been sponsoring state-sponsored type of hacktivism. Hacktivism or hack terrorism, did cyber terrorism. Remember in the 2016 elections in the United States of America, an accusation surfaced wherein the Russians hackers allegedly hacked into the email server of then Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton, and then they exposed the threads of email in Mrs. Clinton's email server, and that cost Mrs. Clinton her election. Not only that, there is an ongoing investigation being conducted by the federal authorities of the United States stating that Russian hackers helped the team of current U.S. President Donald Trump. These are all allegations, by the way, by the current U.S. President to help him win the elections. And in some instances, some of the members, staff members of President Trump, of U.S. President Trump, are actually serving actual prison sentences in the United States now because they allow themselves to become conduits, to become parties of this state-sponsored hacktivism, state-sponsored hack terrorism, cyber terrorism perpetrated by Russian agents.
So the Russians are very good at it. And of course, their primary victims would be the United States of America or anybody who does dealings with the United States of America. I guess this Russian sponsored cyber terrorist only wakes up every morning just to thinking that all that they have to do every day is to be able to hack into the servers of the United States government. I guess that's their primary motivation in life. Now, there are also Japanese hack terrorists. There are also Japanese cyber terrorists, and what they do is basically they leak data search engine privacy protection services. Now, again, the Chinese are very good in what you call as reverse engineering. So they would their primary modus, so to speak, is to be able to steal intellectual property from a company and then reverse engineer that particular technology, and they would produce that very technology in the People's Republic of China. So basically, they're intellectual thieves. I don't mean to disparage the Chinese, but whenever there is a Chinese person in front of me, I always have a certain doubt as to that person's intention. No? So I have to be convinced that that person is actually legit for me to believe in whatever the Chinese person is saying. Now I'm not talking about the Filipino Chinese. I'm talking about Chinese from the People's Republic of China, the mainland China. I mean. Now, these are other nationalities who conduct these types of criminal activities relative to cybercrime. Okay, now in the Philippines, a number of cybercrimes were perpetrated against Filipino nationals and against the Filipino governments. Remember, in March 2016, one of our biggest news then was the news that the COMELEC was hacked, the Commission on Elections was hacked, and over 54 million sensitive data were retrieved, were extracted from their servers, and were leaked into the web, and it included 1.3 million passport information of overseas Filipino workers. Now, what's the danger? What's the danger? That's why this is one. This is a very reason why I do not approve of electronic certificates with electronic signatures of speakers. Why? Because my signature is my private data. I would like to protect my signature. I do not want my signature to be floating all over the web, because once my electronic signature is floating all over the web, anybody with an illegal intent in his mind can use my electronic signature for whatever illegal purpose he or she may deem appropriate. Now, in March 2016, when that happened, that number of sensitive data were leaked, and I tell you what they can do. What they can possibly do is they can create fake identities, fake passports using those authentic personal data. So, if your real name is Juan de la Cruz and your data was extracted and retrieved from that particular leaked, they can create another person by the name of Pedro Bulaong, Pedro de la Cruz. So you're Juan de la Cruz. Someone would create a new identity of Pedro de la Cruz, and all the other data would be authentic. The fingerprint, no, the birth dates, and so on and so forth. The only thing that's fake would most probably be the picture. So it's very crucial that we protect our data, our private data. Now, likewise, on the same year, 68 government websites were hacked and defaced by anonymous Philippines. Now, we had a similar incident wherein a random access Trojan, a rat, was implanted into an seemingly innocent file, and that particular rat, or that particular Trojan, well, basically that was known as a South China Sea rat, was used to be able to spy on the communication, to the email communications of the Department of Justice of the Republic of the Philippines, the organizers of the Asia Pacific Economic Conference, because it was conducted here in the Philippines a year prior, as well as the international law firm representing our country before the International Criminal Court during the West Philippine Sea arbitration. So just imagine. So all of this were done in 1 year through a random access Trojan. And who do you think would be of great interest to do this? Sino makikinabang? Diba? So I would imagine, I would say that all allegations point to the People's Republic of China to having perpetrated that state-sponsored cyber terrorism against the Republic of the Philippines through all of those platforms, because they wanted to make sure that the Philippines do not win in the West Philippine Sea arbitration before the International Criminal Court. But of course, we know that we won that particular arbitration. Unfortunately, it is not being imposed by the current government. Medyo mahina ang gobyerno sa kasalukuyan sa hanap ng pamamaraan para mapasunod ang mga incheck doon sa napanalunan nating arbitration na yon. Kaya hindi na ako magtataka kung balang araw ang Republic of the Philippines ay matawag na the Philippine Province of the People's Republic of China. Now let's go to definitions. What do we mean by cybercrime? Basically, there are two types of cybercrime in the Philippines, and this follows what is known as the Budapest Convention. Now, the Budapest Convention is basically the international agreement entered into by most of the member nations of the United Nations to be able to protect all types of activities, commercial, political, that are being conducted on the World Wide Web. Because as we say, the World Wide Web is pervasive. It transcends just about any country in the world. So the Budapest Convention lays down the parameter to be able to protect our rights, to be able to protect our interests in the cyber world. Now, in the Republic of the Philippines, a law was enacted, otherwise known as Republic Act 10912 or the Cybercrime Suppression Act. The Cybercrime Suppression Act, Cybercrime Prevention Act, is to be basically lays down the guidelines on how to investigate, prosecute, and incarcerate individuals who are perpetrating cybercrime in the Philippines. So there are two types of cybercrime. Now, the first type of cybercrime is what is known as cyber-enabled crime. Basically, this refers to just about any traditional crime that is facilitated by means of information and communications technology. Ang ibig sabihin po nito, kahit anong krimen na dati nang ginagawa pero ngayon ginagawa na sa pamamagitan ng information computer technology. So for example, yung dating estafa dati ng krimen yan. Pero kapag ang estafa, ang panggogoyo mo, yung panloloko mo ng kapwa mo, ginawa mo via social media, Facebook, Twitter, or kung anumang mga social media platforms, ICT enabled na siya, cyber enabled na siya, so cybercrime na siya. Diba? Kaya nga, yung nakaraang kaso na naging matunog sa media, yung kaso ng Libelo laban sa editor-in-chief ng Rappler, ang pangalan ni si Maria Ressa. So, siya po ay kinasuhan ng cyber libel. Kung yun po ay ginawa niya sa panulat at yun ay kanyang ginawa sa newsprint, yun po ay ordinary libel, di ho ba? Pero ang ginawa po ni Maria Ressa at nung kanyang kasama ay pinublish po nila yung kanilang paninirang puri doon sa tao via Rappler website. Kaya ICT na po siya. Nasa cyber world na siya. Kaya ang kanyang krimen ay cyber libel, hindi ordinary libel. Kasi po, ang libel po ay paninirang puri na tinatawag. Di ho ba? Yan po ay ginagawa mo kapag meron kang inilabas na panulat, meron kang inilabas na pahayag, and you put it on newsprint, and that news story basically disparage the personality, disparage the person of the individual that you wrote about. Now, meron hong maliwanag na pagpapaliwanag sa batas dyan. Ang sabi ng ating batas, hindi ka nagko-commit ng libelo kapag ang iyong isinulat ay tungkol sa isang public figure, public person. Sino ba yung public figure? Yung mga public figure ay yung mga individuals na nasa interes ng publikong malaman ang kanyang ginagawa. Public figures are individuals whose lives or anything that needs to be known about him is in the interest of the public. So halimbawa, mga politiko, mga negosyante. So kapag palagi kang nasa media, kapag kilalang-kilala ka ng tao, ang bawat aspeto ng iyong buhay ay nalalaman na ng tao, wala ka na halos na itatago sa iyong pribadong buhay, public figure ka na. Sa makatwid, ang kahit anong bagay na ginagawa mo ay nasa interesa ng publiko para malaman. Kung ikaw ay negosyante at iyong negosyo ay may malaking kinalaman sa interes ng publiko, public figure ka na. Yung naghabla laban sa libel, ang kanilang contention was, I am not a public figure. Although I am a businessman, it is not in the interest of the public to know what I do in my business transactions because my business transactions are minimal. But then Rappler exposed me to the public with some allegations that were unfounded kasing allegations, sapagkat merong sinabi ng Rappler na di umano ang taong ito ay human trafficker daw, pero wala namang kaso ng human trafficking laban dun sa taong yon. Sa makatwid, dinisparage ng Rappler ang pangalan ng taong yon. Kaya natalo sila. Kaya lang naging cyber libel yon, hindi ordinary libel, sapagkat ginawa nila sa website. Malicious yung kanilang intent. There is a malicious intent on the part of Rappler to be able to put on their website the allegations that that person was a human trafficker. Okay. So maliwanag ang pagkakaiba. Pag sinabi mong traditional crime, you do that in the traditional means. Kung estafa, newsprint. Kung libel, newsprint. Kung estafa, nanloko ka ng tao. Pero ang panloloko mo ay traditional. So kinausap mo, pinuntahan mo, humingi ka ng pera, kapalit ng serbisyo o bagay na iyong pinangako na hindi mo naman binigay. Hindi ho ba? Yun ang estafa. Estafa, the crime of estafa is committed when you get monetary considerations or any form of remuneration in exchange for goods and services that were not actually delivered. That's estafa. That becomes cyber estafa, cyber-enabled crime, if you do the crime by recruiting people, by convincing people via Facebook. You are online on Facebook, you see someone, a friend or whosoever, and you say, hey friend, for an investment of 100,000, not an investment. In exchange for 100,000, I'll give you this goods, and these goods would sell with this interest. But you don't provide what you promise in exchange for 100,000. Remember? So that's estafa. But then as you conducted it via Facebook, that becomes cyber-enabled. So kahit anong krimen, traditional na krimen na ginawa mo via social media, via digital platform, ginamitan mo ng cellphone, smartphone, ginamitan mo ng laptop, nagpag-chat ka, lahat po yan cyber-enabled crime po yan. Now, ito namang tinatawag nating cyber-dependent crimes or pure crimes are basically access crimes. These are primarily directed against computer and network systems. So ito yung mga malware attacks, hacking, distributed denial of service attacks. So these types of crimes are pure crimes because what is being perpetrated is you are denying the person access. You're denying the legitimate owner to that computer system access to his system. Right? So you're attacking the system itself. Okay? So that type of crime is a cyber-dependent or what is known as pure crimes. Now, there are some types of cyber crimes in the Philippines. The most common is what is known as online sextortion. Basically, online sextortion is none other than blackmail. Usually, nangyari po ito sa pagitan ng dating magjojowa, dating magkakasintahan. Okay. Kaya napakahalaga po, wag po kayong papayag na kapag meron kayong ginagawang pribadong bagay sa inyong mga kwarto o sa sogo, kung saan mang mga motel, hotel na yan, wag ho ninyong i-record sapagkat alam nyo ho, hindi maraming bagay ang walang forever. Kabilang na po dyan ang relasyon ng mag-aasawa, ng mga magjejewa, mag-asawa nga ng ilang taon, biglang nagising isang araw, ayaw na yung katabi nila, tagahanap na ng iba, nangingibang pugad na kung sabihin. So, to be able to protect your privacy, so to speak, do not record intimate physical activities between you and your partners. Okay. Now, online sextortion happens when, well, dati magjowa kayo, nag-record kayo, nagpicture-picture kayo na kayo ay nasa kahubdan o butubad kayo. Hindi na nga kayo, eventually nagkahiwalay kayo. At nung nagkahiwalay kayo, ayun na nga. At nung nagkahiwalay kayo, gusto pang umulit, gusto pang makaisa nung lalaki. Ayaw mo na kasi naghiwalay na nga kayo. Ang gagawin niya, he will threaten you by saying that, well, if you don't engage in a sexual activity with me, I will distribute this video of ours to as many individuals that knows you, thereby damaging your reputation. Masisira ang iyong pagkatao, ang iyong pagkababae. So, yan po ay online sextortion. Yan pong ibig sabihin ng online sextortion. Diba? Ine-extort ka kapalit ng sex, na kapag hindi ka makipagtaliks doon sa iyong dating kasintahan o kung kahit sino man na hindi mo na wala ka naging relasyon, ikakalat niya yung inyong sex video. So, yan po ay madalas na nangyayari. So, yung mga kabataan ngayon, napakahilig po kasi sa mga ganyan. Well, hindi lang naman kabataan. No. Ngayon, ito ay karamihang nagagawa ng marami. Yung tinatawag po nating Anti-Photo and Video Voyeurism Act, Republic Act 9995. Ano ho ito? It prohibits the taking of photo or video coverage of a person or group of persons performing sexual activity or any similar activity, or to capture an image of the private area of a person such as his naked undergarment, yung mga lugar na yan, yung mga bahagi na yan. Okay. Wag na wag ho ninyong kukunan at wag na wag ho ninyong i-upload sa social media ha. Ano? May isa pong mahalagang bagay dyan. In an area wherein a person has a reasonable expectation of privacy. Let me explain. Okay. Una, bago ka naman talaga kumuha ng litrato sa masiselang bahagi ng katawan ng isang tao, kinakailangan mo ng permiso ng taong yun. Diba? Hindi naman pwedeng naliligo kayo sa isang private pool, di ba? Kinunan mo ng picture yung tao nang walang paalam niya at in-upload mo sa social media, bawal po 'yon. Di ba? Kinakailangan muna ng permiso nung tao na kinunan mo, na-upload mo sa social media. Violation na 'yon, hindi lamang ng batas na ito, violation po iyon ng Data Privacy Act. Sapagkat yung litrato ay isang private data. Kung i-upload mo sa social media yan, sa Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at kung ano man, sabihin mo muna dun sa tao, is it okay if I would upload this picture sa social media? If the person says no, kahit nandoon ka pa, your option is to blur the faces, any identifiable marks of those person. Diba? Kung ayaw mong mag-post ng photo sa social media na blurred, di wag ka na mag-post. Diba? Kahit kasama ka pa doon, sapagkat nahagip mo rin yung iba pang mga private persons. Yung mga iba pang mga tinatawag na data subjects. The data subjects have absolute control over their personal data, over their private data, including their pictures. Now, if you take a picture of someone in a place that is deemed to be private, then you violate that person's reasonable expectation of privacy. Kinunan mo ng litrato yung tao at yung kinuha mong litrato, nasa loob siya ng kwarto o di kaya nasa loob siya ng dressing room, nasa loob siya ng comfort room, mayroon kang nilagay na device para makakuha ka ng litrato o video. Violation na po ito ng Republic Act 9995 sapagkat yung taong yun, nung pumasok sa kanyang kwarto, nung pumasok sa dressing room, nung pumasok sa comfort room, that person has a reasonable expectation of his or her privacy that whatever he or she would do inside that private area would remain private. If you violate that expectation of privacy, you violate this law. Okay. Now, what are public areas? Public areas is when someone wears two-piece bikini on a public beach. Now, there is no reasonable expectation of privacy there. Now, if someone engages in a sexual activity on a beach, you take a picture of it, you post it in social media, then there is no reasonable expectation of privacy there. In fact, ang may kasalanan doon, ang may habla doon, hindi ikaw na kumuha ng litrato, kundi yung mga tao na gumawa ng malaswang bagay in public. In a public beach na makikita ng mga bata, makikita ng matatanda, makikita ng kung sino. Dapat maliwanag yung qualifier. You violate this law if you take a picture, if you take a video of those sensitive areas of a person's body, post it on social media, and when you took those pictures and you took those videos, you took them in an area where the person has reasonable expectation of privacy. That has to be clear. So, bawal yung gagamit ka ng pangmalayo ang lente. Di ho ba? Sabihin mo, nag-ano po siya, nagbibihis siya ng hubot-hubad. Nasaan ka ba nung kinunan mo siya? Ako po ay nandun sa kabilang building, nasa 8th floor. Nasaan yung kinunan mo? Nasa kabilang building, nandun din po siya sa 8th floor. Magkatapat po yung building namin. Anong ginamit mo para makunan mo siya ng litrato? Ay ginamitan ko po siya ng isang lente na kayang kunan ng malayo ang shot na ganun. Aba. That is an automatic violation of this law because even if the person was walking naked in his house, well, he has a reasonable expectation of privacy because that is his house. No sane person would take a picture from one building to the next using a lens that is able to take shots from a long distance. Anybody who would do that only because he has a criminal intent. Maliwanag yon. So again, let me qualify. You violate this if you take a picture or a video of the sensitive areas of a person or sensitive sexual activity of persons, and those persons have reasonable expectations of privacy. Ang moral lesson po dito ay maliwanag. Huwag na ninyong kunan ng video o litrato ang inyong mga personal na mga gawain bilang mag-asawa, magjowa, magkasintahan o kahit pa one night stand lang yan. Diba? Huwag na mag-video sapagkat tandaan po ninyo. Ito ang lagi kong itinuturo sa mga, lagi kong sinasabi dun sa mga merong may cellphone, merong may laptop, merong may tablet. Anything that you put on a smartphone, on a smart gadget, will be there forever. So kahit dinilit na po ninyo yung video, yung picture dyan sa inyong cellphone, sa inyong tablet, if that is subjected to digital forensic examination, those pictures, those videos are still extractable. Kaya di ba kayo nagtataka, pupunta kayo ng Green Hills o di kaya dati sa Quiapo, magpapaayos kayo ng cellphone, na-delete naman na yung video ng pagkatagal-tagal na ilang taon, na ilang buwan nang na-delete yung video, nare-retrieve pa din. Because once it is inputted, once it is recorded, it is there forever. Unless overwritten. How do you overwrite it? Now, overwriting of data in a cellphone, in tablets, in laptops are random. So, malay mo, naswertihan na overwrite yon, so mawawala yon. Pero ang talagang pinakasiguradong mawawala yung mga ganong insensitive data, open your microwave oven, place your cellphone, laptop, or tablet inside the microwave oven, set it on 5 seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, putok na po yan, wala na yan, sira na yan. Wala na rin yung sensitive data na yon. But, If you place that sensitive data on the web, once uploaded on the web, it is there forever. Yun ang may forever. Kaya lang sensitive, no? So be very careful of what you do as boyfriends, as girlfriends, as couples. These are the other things that are prohibited by Republic Act 9995, no? To copy, reproduce, and so on and so forth. So, remember, this is an old law, kaya nandyan pa po yung VCD at saka DVD. Nowadays, seldom do you hear someone having a DVD or a VCD player, no? Or a Blu-ray disc player. Although there's still some who keep VCD and DVD players. I guess they do it for sentimentality, for all time's sake, as a memento. Now, this is another type of cybercrime that is perpetrated by many. Online consumer scams or mass marketing frauds. Basically, like the examples I stated earlier on, these are the type of emails that you receive on your spam folders, supposedly from a charitable institution, supposedly from the son or daughter of a former dictator of somewhere. The same story I stated earlier on. Be very, very careful. Here in the Philippines, the most common is when you receive a pass-a-load scam text. How do they do this? Someone would text you a number, supposedly giving you a few pesos of load, 10, 50, 100, 150, 150, 300 pesos worth of prepaid load in your cell phone. And then someone would text you back and say, Apo, anak, sorry, nag-missent sa iyo ko napadala ang aking yung aking load para yun sa aking apo. Pwede mo bang maibalik gamit ang numerong ito? If you will examine the number carefully, what that person is actually asking you to do is actually do a pass-a-load. If you do so, you lose X number of pesos worth of prepaid load or postpaid load to that scammer. So, that's how they do it, through text. Marami pa rin hanggang ngayon. They still do it, no? I guess marami pa rin ang naloloko. I guess not enough Filipinos are aware that scam has been around for so long already. So I would imagine, please be very careful. Do not fall prey to this particular scam. Now, farming is related to fishing. No, farming and fishing is the employment of fake emails and fake websites. So basically, someone would send you an email, and that email would have a link embedded, and in that email, you would be redirected to click on the link. And once you click on the link, you would be transferred to another email that appears to be legit, another website that appears to be legit. In this instance, it could be your bank. It could be mimicking, depicting a semblance, a copycat of your bank's email. And they would ask you to provide your login credentials. Now, again, be very careful. Be very, very careful. Your bank will never ask for your login credentials through emails. Paano po ginagawa? Tagalogin natin para mas maintindihan na mas maigi. Ang inyong mga bangko, inyong mga financial institutions na mayroon kayong relasyon, hindi ho yan magpapadala ng mga email, mga text na hihikayatin kayo para mag-login gamit ang email na yon o di kaya mag-login gamit ang text na yon. Hindi ho, sapagkat lahat ho ng bangko, lahat ng mga financial institutions, meron na ho silang tinatawag na mga mobile applications. BPI man yan, East West man yan, Metrobank man yan, PNB, RCBC. At yung mga mobile na applications lamang ang legitimate means para ipasok ninyo, i-input ninyo yung inyong mga login credentials. Hindi sa pamamagitan ng email. Di ho ba? So kung email ang ipinadala sa inyo at doon hinihingi ang inyong login credentials, phishing and farming na po yan. Iwasang maging biktima ng phishing and farming. Hikayatin ko rin ang lahat ng mga nakikinig, lahat ng mga nanonood, na ugaliing gamitin ang OTP, yung one-time PIN or yung one-time password na ibinibigay sa inyo ng inyong mga bangko. Sapagkat yung mga one-time PIN na yun po ay automatic ipapadala yung PIN code, yung PIN, yung personal identification number doon sa inyong cellphone, di ho ba? At kayo lamang, lahat ng transaksyon gamit ang inyong mga online or mobile banking ay magpo-push through lamang kapag ipinasok ninyo yung OTP na yon. At kayo lamang ang may control doon sa OTP na yon sapagkat hawak-hawak ninyo yung cellphone ninyo. That's why it's very important to keep your cell phones with you. Especially nowadays wherein cell phones have fingerprint and facial recognition. Now, that's a good thing to have fingerprint and face recognition, but then again, that also has dangers because anybody who gains access to your fingerprint and to your facial recognition data will gain access to your cell phone. And once they gain access to your cell phone, they can gain access to anything on your cell phone. They gain access of your Facebook, no? And so on and so forth. I remember a few years back, I've got a priest friend who is in Rome. So I think 2 or 3 years back, uh, his Facebook was hacked. His Facebook account was hacked. And someone was sending personal messages to people saying that this particular priest is in London and he doesn't have means to be able to go home from London. So he was soliciting money to be able to go home from London to Rome. So humihingi ng pera. Obviously, that was a scam because someone gained access to his Facebook. So be very, very careful with your fingerprint and your facial recognition data. Most importantly, be very careful with how you handle your cell phones. Cell phones are important depository and repositories of your personal data. Keep them to your person at all times. At all times. Better yet, have your cell phones encrypted. Encrypt ninyo yung mga cellphones ninyo para hindi lahat ay makaka-access ng cellphone kahit hawak na nila yung inyong cellphone. Now, of course, online identity theft is made possible by phishing and farming. Now, this one is another type of pure crime. It refers to the altering of computer software and hardware to accomplish a goal that is considered to be outside of the creator's original objective. Yung mga ginagawa nga po ng Hackers Anonymous when they deface government websites all over the world. And of course, cyber terrorism. Again, I don't want to sound xenophobic. I don't want to sound racist about this, pero most of our data point to state-sponsored cyber terrorism and the most prolific and most often than not, those who conduct cyber terrorism are from the countries of mainland China and Russia. That is why I could not possibly understand why the current government is very friendly with the People's Republic of China when all the actions of the People's Republic of China are contrary to what a friend does. Di ho ba? Sino ba namang, kung kaibigan mo yan, sinong kaibigan ang pupunta doon sa bahay mo nang walang paalam at doon natitira? Hindi ba ganun ang ginagawa ng mga incheck sa West Philippine Sea? So, hindi ko alam kung yan po ay gawain ng kaibigan, di ba? Sino bang nagpapakalat ng methamphetamine hydrochloride dito sa Philippines? Sino ba nagpapakalat ng shabu sa Philippines? Sino ba nagpapakalat ng identity theft sa Philippines? Sino ba nagpapakalat ng mga illegal na mga hospital ng COVID sa Fontana, sa Parañaque, sa Pasay? Hindi ba lahat mga incheck? Kaya hindi ko maintindihan ang kasalukuyang gobyerno kung bakit hinahayaan nilang gawin ito ng mga incheck. Hindi naman gawain ng kaibigan ng mga yan. Now, let us proceed to one of the most important things that we need to learn in this particular lecture, data privacy and issues relating to data privacy. Now, definition po muna. What do we mean by personal data? Personal data is just about anything that would identify a natural person. Anything that would point to an identifiable natural person or data subject. And this could be any of the following. It could refer to your name, your identification number, your GSIS number, your SSS number, your driver's license number, and so on and so forth. It could include your location data in your cell phone. Remember your cell phone, click on the settings, look at location data, and your cell phone, your Android will basically keep a record of all of the places that you have been in with your cell phone. Mabibigla kayo dyan pag inopen ninyo yung inyong cellphone at clinic ninyo yung location data, location services ng inyong cellphone. So sa lahat ng lugar na pumunta kayo, dalangin yung cellphone na open yung kanyang GPS, nagre-record po siya. Kung kayo po, magandang bagay po yan sa laban sa krimen sapagkat kapag meron tayong access doon sa cellphone ng tao, malalaman natin kung siya nga ay nandun sa isang lugar na pinangyarihan ng isang krimen. Pero kung ikaw ay nagtatago mula sa jowa mo, nagtatago ka mula sa asawa mo, at ayaw mong malaman ng asawa mo, galing ka sa lugar na yon sapagkat nandun yung ex mo, patay kang bata ka pag nakuha ng jowa o kaya ng asawa mo yung cellphone mo, malalaman niya kapag alam niya kung paano i-click yung location services settings ng inyong cellphone. So, private data din po yun. No? So, personal data din po yun. So, ang iba pang mga data ay yung mga may kinalaman sa iyong physiological, yung mga uri ng sakit na meron ka, ikaw ba'y diabetic, hypertensive ka ba, HIV positive ka ba. Napakahalaga po yun sapagkat ngayon sa panahon ng COVID, mga Pilipinong na tinatamaan ng COVID ay nagiging biktima ng stigma nung unang mga araw nitong COVID, nung nangyari yung COVID sa Pilipinas, meron tayong mga kaso na yung mga nurses na umuuwi doon sa kanilang mga bahay, sinasabuyan ng Zonrox, sinasabuyan ng Clorox, at sapagkat dinidisinfect. May isang kaso pa nga na yung isang nurse ay muntik mabulag kasi yung disinfectant pumasok sa kanyang mata. May mga instances naman din na yung ilang mga nurses ay hindi na nakakauwi doon sa kanilang mga boarding house sapagkat binabarikada ng ating mga Pilipino. Misguided Filipinos, no? So, kaya napakahalaga na hindi malaman yung mga physiological data na ito. Malamang kapag nalaman ng iyong kapitbahay na ikaw ay COVID positive, baka mamaya barikadahan yung iyong bahay. So that's something that should be kept sensitive. That's something that should be kept private. So others include, of course, your genetic, mental, of course, kapag ikaw ay paranoid schizophrenic at umiinom ka ng gamot para doon, you could be stigmatized for that also. But then again, paranoid schizophrenia, people who take medication, even with paranoid schizophrenia, are functional. No? In fact, some people with mental disabilities, some people with mental issues are more functional than people who don't have the same mental difficulties. No? So, may mga high functional mental disabilities naman na tinatawag. So, it's not something that we should stigmatize people about. And of course, if someone knows your economic data, milyonaryo ka pala, multi-millionaire ka, palakad-lakad ka lang dyan sa lugar mo, hindi nalaman bigla ng mga tao na may tinatago kang 10 milyon dyan sa loob ng kahadiyero mo sa inside your home. Most likely, you'll fall victim to a kidnap or ransom incident. So, that's something that you should keep private to yourself. And other forms of social identifiers, cultural identifiers, though these are all personal data. Now, others include, of course, data pertaining to your computers, to your ICT technology. No? For example, your ISP, Internet Protocol Providers, that's something that should be kept private. Now, only law enforcement and the internet protocol provider, the service providers, should have access to that. Now, law enforcement should only gain access to that by means of a court order. If a regional trial court provides them a warrant for them to be able to go to your internet provider, Globe, Smart, PLDT, kung ano man, Converge, pupunta sila doon, dala-dala yung warrant para tingnan para mag-gain access doon sa iyong internet protocol server. Bakit nila gagawin yun? Para i-keep track, para sundan yung iyong mga ginagawa dahil ikaw ay may probable cause, merong ebidensya na maaring ikaw ay nakagawa ng krimen o ikaw ay merong krimeng gagawin. So, there has to be a court warrant to be able to do that. In the absence of that court warrant, no one should gain access of these so-called smart meters identifiers. It should be kept private. Sa'yo lang dapat yun. Okay? Other special categories of personal data would include, of course, your philosophical beliefs, political opinion, liberal ka ba, dilawan ka ba, DDS ka ba. Pero sa panahon ngayon, lahat alam na kapag DDS, lahat alam na kapag dilawan, tirahan ng tirahan yung dilawan at DDS, parehong mga timang. No, parehong mga siraulo, sirahan ng sirahan, pareho lamang Pilipino. 'Di ba? Hindi pwede namang kapag may ginawang tama yung gobyerno, suportahan mo. Pag may ginawang mali ang gobyerno, tuligsain mo because that is what democracy is all about. Parang you must be a die-hard fanatic. Fanatic ka, you're a zealot if lahat ng ginawa ng gobyerno tama or lahat ng ginawa ng gobyerno mali. Marami akong kakilalang ganyan. Lahat ng ginawa ng gobyerno tama. Zealot, dinidepensahan talaga, todo depensa. Lahat na lang, kahit mali na, depensa. May iba naman akong kakilala, lahat na lang ng ginawa ng gobyerno mali, kahit tama naman, mali na, lahat sinisisi kay Duterte. May sayad yung mga ganoon. Zealots, no? Those are zealots. Okay. So, those are personal data as well. Others include, of course, yung sex life mo, yung orientation mo, LGBTQI ka ba? O di kaya ikaw ba ay identifying as binary? Bilang binary, ikaw ba ay male or female? Ikaw ba ay non-binary? Hindi ka nag-identify sa anumang kategoryang ganoon. O ikaw ba ay bisexual? Ikaw ba ay homosexual? Ikaw ba ay straight? So, those are personal data. Those are private personal data as well. Okay. And of course, all of this data opens up a number of issues. We've discussed issues of criminal, political. Now, there are philosophical issues to this as well. There are some logical issues, ethical issues to this as well. Now, it's very important in light of the fact that social media, social networking services, NSS, social networking sites like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they are so pervasive that they're able to intersect almost all of our daily activities in our daily lives. Now, let us examine some of the ethical issues relative to social networking sites. One, first, now, remember that there is a potential harm for third parties to gain access to your personal data. And as they do that, they would subject you to any of the following: commercial marketing, data mining, research and surveillance, or law enforcement. Okay. What do you think is the business of Facebook? What do you think is the business of Google and the other social networking sites? What's the most highly valuable commodity in the new normal? What is the most highly valuable commodity in the digital world? It's information. Information, knowledge. And what are this information? This information could be as mundane as what is your most favorite color? Or where do you intend to go in your next travel vacation? Or it could be as political as what is your political persuasion? Are you radical left-leaning? Or are you radical right-leaning? Or are you a centrist like me? I'm a centrist. I stay in between. I judge issues on a daily basis, day to day. I am not I am not ideologically oriented. No, I'm not ideologically oriented anymore. No, before when I was younger, yes, I was so ideologically oriented. I was left leaning, but now I judge my political decisions on day to day basis. No? So these are very important identifiers. So websites, social networking sites through cookies keep track of your online behavior, of your online activity. So Facebook keeps cookies, tracks you via cookies, Instagram tracks you via cookies, Google tracks you via cookies, and they've got the tendency to sell all of this cookie history, your online behavior history, to third-party consumers. Basically, any other corporation who needs those information. Right? So, they would sell that to a company selling detergent. They would sell that to a company selling travel vacation. They would sell that to an airline company. They would sell that to a face mask company. They would sell that to a company that sells alcohol, disinfectant alcohol. So, why? Because that information is valuable to those third-party users. So these social networking sites have the tendency to do that. So be very careful. Before you click, read through their cookies policy, read through their data privacy policy. Technically, when you click yes, every time that you click I agree, every time that you click yes to their data privacy policy, every time that you click yes to their cookie history policy, you're actually surrendering your control over your internet browsing history. The next time, the next time that think of this example, think of this situation, of this scenario. Let's say today you would like to be browsing through you would like to be browsing through Google cheap airline flights to Cebu for December 2020, assuming that there will be no more COVID pandemic by that time. So Google will keep track of your cookie history relative to that particular internet browsing activity for today. Tomorrow, the next day, and the next few days, Google, Facebook, and any other website that you would be logging into will be showing you suggestions of the same search engine terms. Cheap airfare flights to Cebu. Diba? Diba kayo nagtataka? Diba? Araw-araw, dahil kahapon at ngayon kayo naghahanap ng murang pamasaheng ng eroplano papunta sa Cebu, bukas makalawa at susunod na mga araw kahit hindi ka na naghahanap, kahit hindi ka na nagki-click, magpa-pop up na lang yan doon sa Facebook mo, magpa-pop up na lang yan doon sa Google mo, doon sa mga websites na pinapasukan mo. Because those search engines, those social networking sites are selling your cookie browser history. So very careful. Now, why is that an ethical issue? That is an ethical issue primarily because you lose control over what you search for. You lose control over what you see on your Facebook, on your social networking sites. Next, this is very dangerous because anybody who gains access to your facial recognition, as I stated earlier on, can gain access to just about anything out there. And remember that social networking sites have automatic facial recognition software. Di ho ba? When someone uploads a picture of you on Facebook, Facebook will recommend tag Winston John Romero Casio because I'm in that picture. But I was not the one who uploaded that picture. Di ho ba? So, that is a problem because what if I don't want people to know that I was in that particular location? I'd like control over my personal life. My personal life is my personal life. My personal life. Whatever I do to my life is my life, is of my control. No one should tell me if No one should just no one should just tag me just about anywhere on social media without my permission to do so. But social networking sites have that technology embedded in them. So out of nowhere, someone will tag you. Juan de la Cruz was tagged. No? So it's quite important that you turn on your timeline tagging permission settings. No? You should not allow yourself to be automatically tagged on your timeline. Kahit pa wala kang tinatago, there are certain ethical issues to it because you are the one who should control what happens to you on the social media. Not anybody, kahit pa matalik mong kaibigan yan, kahit asawa mo yan. Personal mong buhay yan. So, you should control what is on social media about you. Other issues. Now, the frequent use of the social networking sites of automatic opt-in privacy controls. Ano ba yung opt-in na yon? Will you opt-in or you opt-out? They would only allow you to fully experience the website if you opt-in. If you opt-out, there will be some limitations of what you can do in that website. Di ba? So, you'd like to you go through the news website of, let us say, inquirer.net. So may opt-in option. The opt-in option will allow you to be able to navigate through the entire website. If you don't opt in, it will limit what you can do in the website. Of course, you're the type of person who would like to be able to experience everything in that website, you would opt in. So wala ka ng control. Wala ka talagang choice. There is no choice because you only click that website because you'd like to read everything that website can offer. And now may opt-in and opt-out. Opt-in means full enjoyment. Opt-out means limited enjoyment. So anong pipiliin mo? Malamang yung full enjoyment. So it's not really a choice. They foist upon you the so-called opt-in privacy control. Pinipilit, so to speak. And of course, they use cookies to track your online user activities even after you have left the social networking sites. Imagine that. Wala ka na doon sa social networking site, may cookies pa din, keeping tab, keeping track, following through your entire online browsing history, your online browsing behavior. Of course, there is a potential use of location-based social networking that can stalk you. Yung sinasabi ko nga po kanina, when you open your settings, open your geolocation, when you open your GPS, anybody can stalk you, so to speak. In the United States, they've got what is known as a digital warrant. What they do is they can apply before a federal judge to be able to track your cell phone. But they only allow it if there is probable cause that you are committing a crime, you have committed a crime, committing a crime, or there is an actual danger to yourself or to others. Those are the three parameters in the United States. Ulitin natin, kapag may krimen kang nagawa, may krimen kang ginagawa, may krimeng kang gagawin, at pang-apat, there is a danger to yourself, maaaring papatayin mo yung sarili, o di kaya may peligro kang, there is a danger that you pose to other persons. So, sa United States, they allow that. They track your cell phone. Habang gamit-gamit mo yung cellphone mo, habang naka-on yung cellphone mo, habang hindi mo pinapatay yung cellphone mo, natatrack nila yung movement mo gamit yung cellphone mo. In the Philippines, we don't have that yet. Wala pa po rito. Although under the new law, under the anti-terrorism law, that is allowed pero hindi pa po ginagawa yung tinatawag nating implementing rules and regulation. There is nothing wrong with that. Kung wala ka namang ginagawang masama, wala kang ginagawang krimen, ano naman ngayon kung sinusundan nila ang movement mo? 'Di ba? Pero kung kalaban ka talaga ng gobyerno, kung ikaw ay miyembro ng New People's Army o miyembro ka ng Abu Sayyaf, miyembro ka ng MILF, member ka ng Communist Party of the Philippines, talagang matakot ka sapagkat susundan ka. Pero kung ikaw naman ay ordinaryong aktivista, Diyos ko, sa dami-dami ng problema ng Pilipinas, ordinaryong aktivista ka lang. Ba't ka naman susundan ng gobyerno ng Republika ng Pilipinas? Masyado ka namang paimportante. Di ba? Susundan ka lamang kapag kriminal ka. Susundan ka lamang kapag meron ng proven track record in the past na ikaw ay isang makakaliwang tao, isang leftist na ang ginagawa mo ay gumawa ng krimen, mga-recruit ng mga kabataan sa Polytechnic University of the Philippines, mga-recruit ng mga kabataan sa University of the Philippines, mga-recruit ng mga kabataan sa mga seminaryo para maging miyembro ng New People's Army. Kung ako talaga ang nasa gobyerno, pasusundan talaga kita sapagkat krimen yung ginagawa mo. Sinisira mo ang buhay ng mga kabataan para maging New People's Army. Dapat kang makulong. Pasalamat ka nga, buhay ka pa eh. So, there's nothing wrong with that. But of course, there are certain ethical concerns with that kapag ang sinusundan mo na ay yung private individual. Sabi ko nga po dun sa krimen ng libel, it is not libelous if it is in the interest of the public that that information is to be disclosed. And that information is only disclosed if, first of all, the person involved is not a public figure. Pero kung public figure yan, at saka it is in the interest of the public that that information is disclosed, that is not libelous. Di ba? That is not libelous. Hindi yan paninirang puri. Pero kapag private person ang sinusundan, ibang usapan yan. No private person should feel insecure. Better yet, no private person should feel unsecured in his own home. No private person should feel insecure or unsecure in his private life. Kaya importante na hindi pakialaman ng gobyerno kapag pribadong buhay na ng isang pribadong individual. Pero kapag public figure o di kaya individual na may intensyong saktan ang kung sino man, individual na may intensyong saktan ng gobyerno o saktan yung estado, ibang usapan yan. Makukulong ka under the anti-terrorism law and I support that law 100%. Next, the last but not the least, is yung potential ng social networking sites to encourage users to adopt voluntary but imprudent, ill-informed, and ethical sharing practices. Ano pong mga example nito? Ikaw, pakawala kang tao, malakas kang uminom, walwalan ka talaga, walwalan to the max, pagkatapos yung COVID, magwawalwal ako, natapos na yung COVID, let us say, nagkaroon ng 2 months na walang local transmission, walang bagong cases ng COVID, katulad sa Vietnam or Thailand or New Zealand, sinabi ni Presidente, okay, wala nang ECQ, wala nang GCQ, back to normal na tayo, so punta ka doon sa Timog o sa Morato, walwal ka, diba? Inom ka ng inom. Ikaw, wala kang pakialam, post ka ng picture post ka sa social media. Pinost mo sa Facebook. Unfortunately, nung pinost mo, may nahagip kang tao sa likod mo. Yung taong yon, ang kanyang image sa publiko, yung image sa kanyang magulang niya is a very good boy, is a very good lady, and he or she can do nothing wrong in the eyes of his or her parents. But the fact that you uploaded that on social media and then all of a sudden, social media recognized through facial recognition that person and then asked you to tag and all of a sudden you unwittingly, without asking that person's permission, you could not ask that person's permission because most likely that person is a stranger to you. You tag that person and then somewhere out of nowhere, the parents of that person saw that the child, his or her child, is also a walwaler like you, walwalero ding tulad mo. Sira ang buhay ng batang yon, mapapagilitan niya ng mga magulang niya, sigurado. So, be very careful what you do on social media. In fact, the data privacy law is quite explicit. If you upload a picture, a photo, a video on social media that would identify the another person, seek the permission of those other persons before you upload, before you do so. If you don't get the permission of that other person, what do? Blur the picture before you upload. Takpan mo yung mukha ng mga taong yun. If you don't do that, you violate the data privacy law. You violate the privacy of that subject data, of that data subject. Be very careful. Now, the notion of friendship. In days of old, when you say a friend, it is someone to whom you'd be able to share your secrets with him, and you are confident that the secret that you are sharing in confidence with that person will remain a secret. Even if you are not friends anymore, even if you have a falling out with that friend, that person will not share that secret about you because that secret will damage you. No? That's what friendship is. Hindi na kayo magkaibigan kayo matalik ngayon, so dami mong binubuhos sa mga hinaing, mga problema, mga sekreto. Pagdating ng araw, hindi na kayo magkaibigan dahil nagkaroon kayo ng falling out, nagkasabaan kayo ng loob, hindi mo kaibigan talaga yun. Masamang tao yan, o di kaya ikaw ay masamang tao yan kapag lahat ng sinabi niya sa'yo in confidence, o magkaibigan pa kayo, biniyang-yang mo, masamang tao yan, immoral yan. Diba? Ganun ang konsepto ng friendship noon. Sa ngayon, hindi mo na nga halos kakilala, friend mo na sa social media. Facebook allows you 5,000 friends. And how many of those 5,000 friends do you actually know? In the past, when you say a friend, the relationship of friendship is a very time-honored tradition in the past. But now, when we talk of friends, you can have momentary friends on social media. Oy, friend kita sa Facebook ah. Pero what do you have in common? Nothing except the fact that you are on Facebook. So the concept of friendship has changed over time as a result of social media. Now, there are some good things and bad things about this. Now, because of social media, we're able to keep one advantage is because of social media, we're able to maintain relationships over long distances, over far distances with people whom otherwise we would not be able to connect with. Diba? So mga kaibigan na, mga kaklase natin ng elementary, high school, college, mga kaklase natin sa mga internships natin and so on, mga na-meet natin kung saan. Nang dahil sa social media, we're able to maintain that relationship. That's something positive also. So as you see, social media, social networking sites are double-edged swords or they are two-sided coins. May ulo at saka may buntot. As simple as that. The ulo is the advantage. The buntot is a disadvantage. So you have to be very ethically and morally responsible how you behave on social media, on social networking sites because of this heads and tail relationship on social networking sites. Well, one philosophical question that you need to ask is the relationship that we develop on social media, are the friendships that we develop on social media as good as the real thing? Or don't they pale in comparison to our face-to-face connections? So, are they the same or are they not? Do you feel the same sense of excitement with your online friend as opposed to your physical friend, to your friend with whom you have a face-to-face interaction? So, that is very crucial. It's very important to be able to check whether the relationships that we develop on the social networking sites are authentic or not. Are these real friendships? Again, why is this question very important? Because as we said, friendships entail a lot of dynamics. When you call someone a friend, when you call someone a kaibigan, well, you have to protect that relationship no matter what. So, is that type of relationship similar to an online or virtual relationship that you have via Facebook, via Twitter, via Instagram, and so on and so forth? Of course, as we said, as philosophers would say, as thinkers would say, as scholars would say, there are some unique advantages to it. Well, remember, when you are on Facebook, when you're online, sometimes you can be more candid, you're more honest. You're more frank, candid, as opposed to when you are in face-to-face relationships. Bakit? Facebook allows you time to phrase your messages. You're able to be diplomatic about it. But nonetheless, you're able to carry the message across. As opposed to, if you're the type of person na medyo hirap magsabi ng totoo, hirap magsabi ng direkta, medyo hirap ka kapag person to person, right? So social networking sites allow you that level of candor, that level of candidness, that level of honesty, because you're able to rephrase, you're able to take time to create a statement, a question before you're able to bring it to the other side of the Facebook messaging system. As I stated earlier on, since the time that Facebook was developed, within 5 years, as stated, within 5 years as it was launched, it's very evident that most of us, ang hinahanap natin yung mga kaibigan natin ng mga nakaraan. No? We're able to reconnect. We're able to redevelop our strong relationship with those persons. Family members, our brothers, sisters who are abroad, or in the provinces, our nephews, nieces, and the like, our friends from high school, elementary, college, co-workers, anybody. Yung mga na-meet mo nga lang nung pangmadalian, ilang buwan lamang kayo nagkasama, hindi mo na makita pero nag-iwan ng matinding tatak sa iyo, sa iyong buhay. Hinahanap mo through social networking sites. Of course, lalo na sa Facebook, you're able to organize a lot of things on Facebook. Parties and the like through social networking sites. Kaya, bagamat nangyari itong COVID, isang nakakapanlumong pangyayari ng global pandemya sa buong mundo, nevertheless, with the advent of digital technology, we were able to adapt. Again, for teachers out there, we all know that it will not be the same as face-to-face interaction. But then again, with the advent of digital technology, we're able to replicate a semblance of the type of interaction, replicate, copy, duplicate a semblance of the interaction we do with our students. So it is now left to our imagination on how we do that. It is now up to us on how to be able to do that. So, but of course, some of us will have difficulty because we've got no connection to the internet. Then again, there are many offline technologies available out there. You've got radios, you've got television, right? So, for example, if I am a division superintendent, wherein if I'm a division superintendent in a Parplang division somewhere in the provinces, I would conduct a survey. I would conduct an online survey. How many of my teachers, how many of my learners have online connection? If I find out that many would prefer offline technologies, I will go to the radio station, to the local radio stations, or I will go to the local television network, and I will seek their help to be able to provide as a learning platform, as a modes of delivery, these offline technologies of radio and television. And I guess our civic duty, our civic responsibility would kick in. The owners of these television stations, the owners of these radio stations would employ. I ask you to implore upon the civic duty. Let me rephrase that. Pakiusapan ninyo gamit ang kanilang civic duty, ang kanilang pananagutan, yung kanilang responsibilidad sa pamayanan, na baka naman pwede nilang gawing libre yon. Ilang oras lang naman yon sa isang araw. Di ho ba? So, and tailor-made your delivering platforms, your delivery time, according to the availability of the radio and the television in your locale. No? Only if social networking, only if digital platforms are not available in your area. Of course, there are other ethical questions nga. Ito problema. Minsan na nga lang kayo magkasalo-salo sa pananghalian o sa hapunan kasi karamihan mga busy. Pero pagdating doon sa platform, sa pagkainan, ang unang gagawin, pipicturean mo na yung pagkain, ipopost sa social media, aantayin kung ilan yung nag-like, ilan yung nag-heart, ilan yung nag-care, ilan yung nag-thumbs up, ilan yung nag-thumbs down, ilan yung nag-sad face, and so on and so forth. Di ba? So, that's a disadvantage. There is a time for everything, as the good book says, as the good Bible says. There is a time for everything. So, if it's a time for the family to talk, if it's a time for the family to enjoy each other's company, then it's not a time for social media. Maybe it's time for you to leave your cell phones somewhere as you eat. or as you watch a television, as you enjoy the company of each other, right? Lastly, the real question, as someone with a philosophical background, with someone who had foundational studies in philosophy in college, man's quest is really the quest for the good life, right? It's really a quest for the good life. What does the good life mean? I'm reminded of the Nicomachean ethics of the great philosopher Aristotle. According to Aristotle, the good life is a life that stands in between two extremes. What are those two extremes according to Aristotle? According to Aristotle, the two extremes are extremes of vices. The vice of deficiency and the vice of excess. Ang sabi ni Aristotle, no, sa Tagalog, ang sabi ni Aristoteles, ang magandang buhay ay yung magandang buhay na nasa pagitan ng dalawang bisyo. Ang bisyo ng kakulangan at ang bisyo ng sobra. The vice of deficiency and the vice of excess. So, hindi pwedeng sobra-sobra, hindi pwedeng kulang. The example presented by Aristotle was the virtue of courage. A good life is one wherein one is courageous. In faced with a difficulty, faced with 50 enemies. The vice of excess is you have 50 enemies, you're only one according to Aristotle. You'd go after those 50 persons, you'll fight them, then you are a foolhardy person. What is a foolhardy person? A foolhardy person is one who is sobra-sobra ang tapang. Diba? 50 na yung kalaban, sinugod mo yung 50. Dahil sinugod mo yung 50, ano nangyari? Patay ka. Pero meron ding vice of deficiency. How many bullets do you have? Or if you've got an arrow. Huh? So, the vice of deficiency is one of cowardice. Karawagan. May bala ka naman, bago ka tumakbo, bago ka lumayo, magpatama ka muna ng ilan para mabawasan ng mga kalaban. Para sa susunod na paghaharap ninyo, bawas na yung kalaban. Pero kung ikaw yung tipo na nakita mo pa lang na marami na tumakbo ka na agad, then you are a coward. The vice of deficiency. Bawasan mo muna yung kalaban. Di ba? So, in that situation, the virtue is courage. And courage is knowing your situation. Courage is knowing the difficulty that you are in, the disadvantage that you are in, and making good out of whatever advantage you have. You have 10 bullets, take out 2 to 5 or probably 10 if you're a good sharpshooter. So that next time that you face these people, there are only 40 of them left. Then go. Do not go after them because you don't have bullets anymore. Find time to extricate yourself. But do not be a coward. Do not be a foolhardy person. On that note, we say on the use of social networking sites, on the use of digital technology, on the use of internet computer technology, information computer technology. The technology is already there. The vice of deficiency is if you will not use it because you're too afraid to use it for whatever data privacy issues that you conjure in your mind. If you don't use it, you're unable to take advantage of the technology. You're unable to use it for the benefit of your students. If you don't use it, you're unable to use it for the benefit to make your life a better life. If you do that, then you're a coward. You've fallen victim to the vice of deficiency. At the same time, do not allow your life to be fully consumed by digital technology, that every waking moment of your life, all that you do is before a laptop, before a cell phone, and so on and so forth. Put a limit to what you do online. The good life in the face of digital technology, the good life in the face of social networking sites, the good life as per Aristotle would be in the face of social networking, in the face of digital technology is to know when to use it, when to rest, to know when to opt in, when to opt out, to know when to say yes, I agree, and when to say no, I agree. The good life is to know when to log in and to know when to log out. On that note, I thank you for this lecture as I log out.